behalf of the United States Coast Guard and the Coast Guard Auxiliary, I salute the veterans being recognized on Memorial Day. It is up to us to keep the memories alive by teaching the next generation and all generations to follow the importance of what the military stands for. The United States Coast Guard is one of the country's 5 armed services and is a unique agency in the federal government. We can trace our history to August 4th, 1790, when the first Congress authorized the construction of 10 vessels to enforce tariff and trade laws to prevent smuggling. The Coast Guard is the oldest organization of the federal government until the Navy Department was established in 1798. We served as the nation's only armed force afloat. We have continued to protect the nation throughout our long history and have served proudly in time of war and conflict as far back as the Constitution became law in 1789. Our national defense responsibilities remain one of the most important functions today. In times of peace, we operate as part of the Department of Homeland Security, serving the nation's frontline agency for enforcing laws at sea and protecting the marine environment. Our vast coastline and ports in saving lives. In times of war, at the direction of the President, we serve under the Navy Department. The Coast Guard and the Coast Guard Auxiliary strengths are also in peacetime missions, which the public relies on. The Coast Guard, heroes of the missions of unsung, working quietly behind the background. Here are a few examples of the rescues the Coast Guard have made over the years. In 1850, the immigrant ship Assure was grounded during a snowstorm at Squaw Beach, New Jersey. Under the supervision of John Maxim, the Coast Guard volunteers rescued 201 of 202 persons aboard the ship. Following World War II, search and rescue shifted back to tide water. High seas and search and rescue have long presented the Coast Guard with one of its greatest challenges. When disaster occurred, hundreds of lives may be at stake. In October 14th and 15th, 1947, 69 survivors were rescued by the crew of the USCGC Bibb from the flying boat Bermuda Sky Queen. Waterborne in the North Atlantic Ocean, approximately midway between Labrador, Canada, and Ireland. In October 1980, while almost 200 miles off of Sitka, the Dutch cruise ship Cruisendam was jarred by explosions and stopped dead in the water. After a fire started in the engine room, in spite of high seas, the Coast Guard, Air Force, and Canadian helicopters plunked more than 500 shipwrecked survivors from crowded lifeboats in the Gulf of Alaska. Many of the survivors, mostly seniors, were lifted in rescue baskets awaiting the Coast Guard cutter Botwell and the commercial tanker Williamsburg. Not one life was lost. The dedicated men and women of the Coast Guard and the Coast Guard Auxiliary continue to perform their duties on our waterways, putting their lives at risk every day. Out of utmost respect and appreciation for all those men and women who have served and died protecting our freedom in the United States, we recognize and honor them today. Our next distinguished guest, Barbara Peldonian.
Madam Mayor, esteemed guests, their families, and those who came to remember with us. How grateful I am that I can remember those who died for my freedoms, from the Revolutionary War to the War on Terror. My name is Barb Palladino, and I'm the Regent of the Estahaki Chapter, National Society, Daughters of the American Revolution. I'm grateful to be able to say a few words here to you about what Memorial Day means to me through the DAR. I'm grateful the DAR objectives begin in trying to promote the memory and the spirit of the men and women who achieved American independence. It concludes with a promotion of a patriotic citizenry. We can remember those who died for America's freedom with these objectives. President George Washington, in his farewell to the American people, asked of us to develop an enlightened public opinion, to afford to young and old such advantages as shall develop in them a large capacity for performing the duties of American citizens. I joined the DAR to bear witness to the sacrifice that others made so that we can live here and celebrate our freedoms. DAR remembers through action, presentations, and commitment. This spring, I was able to attend 4 ROTC ceremonies. How grateful I was to show honor and respect to those future patriots of American freedom. Here today, we see the youth acknowledge the old, and with our strength of memory upon those Lincoln described as who gave the full measure of their devotion towards enduring freedom. Our chapter remembered the servicemen and women who did not return with a missing man table this spring. We heard a veteran tell us how he still to this day misses his compatriots who did not come home. Gratitude fills my heart for my patriot ancestors who gave their lives for American freedom. And I'm grateful to those men and women who we remember here today. They represent but a part of those we remember who have died in all American wars, between them or in service training to protect us all. To ensure the sacrifices of America's fallen heroes are never forgotten, in December 2000, the U.S. Congress passed the National Moment of Remembrance Act. The charter was to encourage the people of the United States to give something back to their country, which provides them so much freedom and opportunity, by holding commemorations such as these. The National Moment of Remembrance encourages all Americans to pause wherever they are at 3 p.m. local time today for a minute of silence to remember and honor all those who died in service to this great nation. Let us join together now and later today to honor those who paid the ultimate price for our freedoms on this, our National Memorial Day. It is burned upon our heart and memory. I am grateful. Thank you. At this time, I would like to introduce Donna Brown, Exalted Ruler of the Boca Raton Elks.